A man yawns loudly as he starts his day, but he looks very tired already. Walking through the crowd, our lead wonders how everyone has so much energy on a Monday morning. He notices a group of loud guys blocking the entrance and wonders what their deal is. One guy is crying because his crypto lost 40% of its value while his friends just laugh. The noisy bunch keeps arguing about money while making fun of their companion for being a loser. People nearby whisper about how digital coins have totally ruined the minds of these young kids. Our hero decides to just ignore the mess because he thinks the police will eventually show up. Suddenly, an older security guard walks up to the group and tries to speak with them politely. The worker asks them to smoke somewhere else since the clouds are drifting inside the next building. Instead of moving, the bullies just start laughing because they think the request is a total joke. One of the guys looks really angry and calls the old man a boomer for trying to lecture them. Grabbing the guard by the shirt, the tall bully starts threatening him while acting like a complete jerk. He screams in the poor man's face, asking if his tiny paycheck can cover the money he lost. His friends find the whole thing hilarious and start recording everything to post it online later. They keep filming the employee while laughing at his scared face because they think this is great content. Looking at the camera, the man notices they are filming something interesting while appearing out of nowhere. Startled by his presence, the two guys jump back and shout because they are completely caught off guard. Staring intensely, the protagonist shows a very serious look that makes the atmosphere feel heavy. While the bully keeps bothering the older guard, his friends start apologizing loudly for all the trouble. Agreeing immediately, the two followers bow down low and promise to respect their elders as they were told. Laughing like a maniac, the leader mocks his own friends for being scared of a simple worker. Terrified by the situation, the blonde guy screams at his friend to shut up before things get even worse. Thinking about his low salary, the protagonist remembers earning only 1.96 million won after taxes. Walking forward slowly, the hero ignores the insults about making pocket change while the bully keeps mocking him. Bragging about his easy money, the loud guy claims to make 2 million won in just one single week. Moving lightning fast, the protagonist grabs the bully by the face and makes him stop talking instantly. Holding him tight, the worker explains that the value of money is different when you actually work for it. Slamming the loudmouth onto the floor, the man proves that being a parasite is nothing compared to hard work. Gasping for air, the defeated bully lies on the ground while feeling the consequences of his bad behavior. Watching the scene, the blonde guy realizes that those movements belong to someone very dangerous he knew before. Looking down at the guy he just beat, the protagonist says he didn't attack because of an insult to his low pay. 10 years ago he was the peak of violence, but now this legend is just worried about blood ruining his work outfit. Staring in disbelief, the blonde subordinate cannot believe his former boss is now just a normal office worker. Sweating from fear, the young man realizes the most dangerous fighter in the country is living an ordinary life. Smirking with a dark aura, the main character notices that the boy is wearing a very expensive and clean shirt. Riding on the back of a fast motorcycle, the driver asks his former leader a very serious question about his career. Speeding through the city, the shirtless guy wonders why such a powerful warrior chose to earn a humble wage. Reflecting on his youth, the salaryman says that his past reputation is meaningless now that he is older and wiser. Watching people work hard every single day, he realizes that following a routine is what makes someone disciplined. Walking among the crowd of office workers shows that being part of society is a different kind of challenge. Honestly, doing what needs to be done is the true sign of strength, according to this former street fighter. Offering some advice with a small smile, he tells his companion to start living a life that actually has real value. Claiming that money is not everything, the hero asks the driver exactly how much he earns every single month. Screaming in total shock, he finds out the guy makes 6 million, which is 3 times his own monthly salary. Stealing the limited edition designer shirt, the protagonist tells the writer to hurry up because he is late for work. The story begins by showing the Samjin Group, which is ranked 30 in the South Korean financial world. Hidden behind the glamour is Samjin International, which is a company tasked with handling all the dirty work. This specific office is the kind of place that would sell anything just to make a little bit of money. Inside, the workplace manager Kim sighs while asking Sungho if they are just playing house right now. Holding some papers, the boss complains that the list of motorcycle buyers was taken from simple shopping apps. Looking frustrated, the man says he does not have the capacity for trivial tasks and demands better results. Even though the worker apologizes, the supervisor yells for him to start being good at his actual job. Rubbing his head, the manager tells the boy to just go back to his desk since he is tired of talking. Feeling totally defeated, the protagonist stares into space while repeating that he is nothing more than a rock. A girl named Minji approaches and tells him to stay calm because corporate life is always very stressful. While looking at the employee, she mentions that the weight of leadership is probably causing the anger. It seems the boss was chewed out earlier this morning by a big company over some international freight rates. Suddenly the atmosphere changes when a loud noise echoes through the room as a door is kicked open. A director from Mujin Shipping named Sukjin Choi barges in while screaming at the top of his lungs. Getting up from his chair, the supervisor looks terrified and asks what brings the angry visitor to his office. An angry man in a white shirt yells at his manager about some shipping contract and demands the papers right now. Nearby office workers whisper that this aggressive guy is the new director who took over the shipping operations. While the employees watch in fear, they mention how the director is known for pulling crazy power trips on everyone. The poor manager tries to explain that they have already changed the shipping prices 3 times in just 1 year. Even worse is the rumor that the bully recently started practicing martial arts so he can be even more violent. Suddenly a sharp pain shoots through the manager as the director kicks him hard right in the leg. Crouched on the floor, the old man apologizes while being threatened with even more shipping delays. A concerned lady tells our protagonist Sunho to just ignore the scene so that they stay out of trouble. Looking around in confusion, she realizes the young man has already vanished from his desk. The director grabs a stack of papers and threatens to end the whole deal if things do not go his way. Raising his hand, the aggressive boss prepares to slam the documents right into the manager's face. Fear fills the older man's eyes as he waits for the impact while the documents hover right above him. Suddenly a firm hand catches the director's arm, which stops the attack and leaves the bully totally shocked. Sunho calmly explains that these files are way too important to be scattered all over the office floor. Mocking the situation, the director asks if the new guy has any idea who he is messing with right now. Poking the forehead of the main character, a rude man says he should not be addressed by someone so low in the company. Arrogantly laughing, the rich guy asks if the company failed to teach him how to greet people for the first time. Suddenly the bully delivers a strong kick while shouting that the poor boy is just an insolent little person. Clutched in pain on the floor, the victim hears the man asking why he is glaring with such an angry face. Hiding his face in the shadows, the young man looks ready to explode from all the humiliation he just suffered. Intervening to stop the fight, an older manager arrives and apologizes to the director for the sudden disturbance. Looking worried, manager Kim tells the mean boss to have a safe trip back while the young boy stays silent. Heading away with his hands in his pockets, the director leaves as the 2 employees bow their heads in respect. Standing on the rooftop during sunset, the older man asks if the rookie smokes even though he quit 10 years ago. Lighting a cigarette, the manager asks the worker if he knows the real reason why the company chose to hire him. Scratching his head, the kid nervously smiles and says it must be because of his great qualifications for the job. Chuckling at the joke, the boss mentions that he only has a basic diploma and a license for riding a motorcycle. Blowing out a cloud of smoke, the man stays quiet for a second while thinking about the past. By turning his head, he finally reveals that the true reason was actually the intense look in the boy's eyes. Remembering the interview, we see the protagonist looking very sincere and happy to be given a chance at life. Looking at the young man, the senior says he noticed how much he really wanted to succeed in this place. Warning his junior, he mentions that corporate life is hard because many people there have no common sense at all. Walking outside, the older man explains that workers must stay quiet even when things feel wrong for the good of the office. Placing a hand on his shoulder, he suggests just looking the other way and forgetting any bad stuff that happens. Turning his back, the manager mentions that job titles don't really matter when it comes to being a man. Laughing loudly, the guy admits it was pretty embarrassing to get beat up by someone who was half his age. Standing there silently, the protagonist looks at his boss and seems to be thinking about everything he just heard. Boasting about the past, the senior claims he used to be a great fighter and could have punched back if he wanted. High above the city, the full moon shines bright while the night sky fills with clouds during this quiet moment. Walking through the dark streets, a mysterious person confirms over the phone that the target is inside the gym right now. Standing in front of the building, the main character tells his friend to go home and rest while he handles business. Smiling with a dark look, he asks if the manager knows what kind of person someone like Director Choi fears the most. Thinking to himself, he believes that crazy people are actually terrified of anyone who is even more insane than they are. Inside the training ring, two fighters are trading hits while the sound of gloves hitting skin echoes through the room. Hurting from the constant attacks, the man on the ground begs his opponent to stop the beating immediately. Inside the boxing ring, Choi strikes a man while shouting at him to keep his guard up and earn his money. With incredible force, a heavy fist lands directly on the face of the poor opponent. Suffering a brutal impact, the man gets sent flying back as liquid sprays from his mouth. Standing tall in the middle of the ring, the fighter watches the other guy collapse onto the floor. While people rush to help the victim, Choi thinks the guy is just faking it to look dramatic. Suddenly, the angry coach starts screaming because his students keep getting injured by this sponsor. Turning around with a smirk, the arrogant man calls out to his teacher in a very teasing way. Looking scary, he reminds the trainer that he was the one who saved him from being hungry and poor. Feeling completely terrified, the older man tries to explain himself while shaking in fear. Smiling wide, the rich guy offers an envelope full of cash so everyone can go out for a nice dinner. Staring at the money, the coach looks both upset and greedy at the same time. Hurrying him up, Choi says he will put the money back if it is not taken within 5 seconds. Accepting the situation, the boss agrees to the deal while the sponsor mentions a new membership. Noticing a newcomer, the fighter asks if this person is just a small helper for some manager. Adjusting his tie, the young man in the suit asks if they can start a match right this moment. Inside the gym, the muscular guy thinks that normal people have it easy compared to elite guys like him. While putting on his mouthguard, he claims that seeing clueless punks trying to step out of line makes him really angry. This big guy mocks the opponent because he has no money or power and is only trying to protect his small ego. In front of him, the protagonist stretches his arms while staying calm despite all the trash talk happening. The bully continues his speech by asking if this visit is some kind of revenge for what happened to manager Kim. Fixing his gloves, the hero replies that the man talks too much and probably does not have any friends at all. Losing his temper, the muscular fighter lunges forward with a punch while yelling that he will do more than just a kick. Easily dodging the attack, the main character asks if paying to beat people up actually makes the bully feel strong. Screaming that he will kill his opponent, the angry man swings again, but the protagonist ducks under the strike easily. Moving fast, the young man says that not listening to others just proves his point about having no friends. Looking shocked, the big guy realizes he cannot land a single hit while his target remains completely untouched. Grinning wildly, the bully asks if the boy is sure about this because throwing that punch will ruin his future career. With a serious look on his face, the protagonist prepares his own strike as he decides to finally end this boring talk. A massive punch lands right on the chin of the muscular guy, who gets sent flying back by the powerful impact. Flying through the air, the bully loses his mouthguard while his eyes roll back from the strength of that single hit. The protagonist smiles while saying that he is not afraid of anything in this place. Launching a powerful strike, the fighter wonders if they really thought he would show up here while being scared. A confident grin appears on his face as he repeats that he has no reason to feel any fear at all. Moving forward with a strong hit, the young man confirms that he came here because he is totally ready for this. Quickly shifting his body, the hero manages to evade a sudden attack coming from his opponent. The heavy fist passes right by his head because the main character is much faster than the other guy. Landing a solid hit, the protagonist makes his rival scream in pain while the whole crowd watches. Mocking his enemy, the boy says that the rival might even pee his pants if he keeps taking these hits. Focusing his gaze, the fighter decides to provoke his opponent even more to reach his secret goal. Getting very angry, the rival curses at the hero while trying to handle the constant insults. Charging forward with pure rage, the black-haired guy shouts that the protagonist is finally going down. A massive punch lands directly on the main character face with a lot of force and speed. Everyone watching the fight stays frozen while they see the impact of that heavy strike. Showing off his strength, the young man mocks his rival for having weak fists that cannot even scare a child. Glaring with pure hatred, the enemy realizes that this guy is much more dangerous than he looks. The fighter in purple charges forward while shouting that his opponent is way too scared to actually do anything. Catching the incoming fist with ease, the student suggests they make a deal right now before the fight continues. He demands that no matter what happens, his company must never suffer any losses because of this situation. Grinning with confidence, the opponent agrees to the promise and thinks he can still win this battle easily. A tight grip is seen as the deal is sealed and the tension between both men reaches a whole new level of intensity. Moving his feet quickly, the fighter in purple prepares for a massive attack while the crowd watches in silence. Throwing a high kick, he tries to catch the other guy off guard, but the protagonist stays calm and focused. Seeing the sudden move, the student looks surprised for a moment and tries to find a way to counter the strike. Wrapping his leg around the neck, the purple fighter tries a grapple move and thinks he has finally won the match. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he claims that a simple kick was never going to be the end of this fight. Trying to lock the hold tight, the fighter puts all his strength into the move and waits for his rival to give up. Looking straight at him, the student reminds the guy that he already made a clear promise about the company. Feeling his arm bend in a weird way, the opponent gets terrified and wonders how this is even possible right now. Warning him once more to never touch his business, the protagonist uses his strength to turn the tables. With a powerful slam, the purple fighter hits the ground and the match ends with a clear victory for the student. Looking completely stunned, the group of fighters can't believe what just happened before their eyes. Standing tall over his fallen opponent, the hero looks down at the defeated director Choi while the room stays silent. Demanding an ambulance, the men rush to help their leader as the fighter tells them to pass on a final message. Firmly, he states that a real man must always keep his promises because honor is everything in this world. Trembling with fear, the trainer asks what kind of monster he is, since no normal person could do that. Thinking for a second, the protagonist simply claims to be an ordinary office worker and nothing more. Walking away with his bag, he leaves the stunned crowd behind while they stare at his back in total disbelief. Morning arrives at the apartment building as the sun starts to shine over the quiet city streets. Groaning in pain, the young man wakes up feeling every hit from the night before because his body is incredibly sore. Applying medical patches in front of the mirror, he notices how dangerous that last fight actually was for him. Suddenly his phone starts ringing on the table and he sees that Ms. Minji is trying to call him this early. Answering the call, he hears her frantic voice asking what happened yesterday because everyone is worried. Explaining the situation, she says that Director Choi showed up at the office with a bunch of dangerous thugs. Shocked by the news, the worker realizes that things are about to get even worse at his workplace today. Looking at the mess, we see the company being trashed by the angry group while they search for the hero. Sitting with his goons, the scarred man demands that Sungo be brought to him or he will double the prices for the company. Concerned about the situation, the manager asks why they want the employee while the bully says he is giving a final chance. Getting up from the chair, the antagonist says he will forgive everything if the worker just gets on his knees and bows. Pointing his finger forward, he explains that showing proper remorse is the only way to settle the debt right now. Looking at the shocked staff, the director promises to keep the original contract terms if his ego is satisfied. Suddenly, the protagonist appears at the door, breathing heavily after rushing to get there before things got worse. Standing there with a serious look, the young man stares at the group of thugs who are waiting for his arrival. Watching from afar, the other employees whisper about how crazy it is for someone to act like a gangster in an office. Frustrated with the situation, the manager asks how anyone could make such a weird demand in a professional place. Turning his back, the director calls him childish and says he cannot stand watching people who are too soft for business. Approaching the group, the hero reminds the man about his promise from yesterday to not cause any trouble for the firm. Smirking with bandages on his face, the bully says he is just renegotiating the contract for the benefit of everyone. Mocking the situation, the villain asks if the boy got hit so hard that he lost his memory and forgot what happened. Seeing the bruises on the director's face, the workers start to wonder if the two actually fought each other recently. Teasing his rival, the protagonist says that almost wetting yourself from a shock can really mess with a person's memory. Looking at the bandage on his face, Choi asks the guy if he has any shame left for changing his story like a child. While watching the mess, the older manager asks Kwon what on earth is happening between the two of them. Because he is extremely angry, Choi starts to say he will only forgive the situation if the other guy gets on his knees. Losing his mind, Choi screams that the brat needs to crawl between his legs to fix everything right now. Suddenly, the young man drops to the floor while asking everyone if they heard the deal about the original contract. Beneath the legs of his enemy, the protagonist crawls while the whole office watches the scene in silence. After standing up from the floor, the boy says he expects the director to keep his word this time. Reminding him about business credit, the hero smiles and says a deal is as important as life itself. In an attempt to stop a disaster, the older manager begs the director to calm down and talk in private. Screaming for the man to let go, Choi is out of control while the office girls look on in terror. With a forceful swing, the director hits the poor manager and sends him stumbling back across the room. Glaring with hate, Choi asks the old man if he has a death wish for putting his hands on him. From the side, the main character looks on with a face full of hidden rage and deep disgust. Turning his back, the manager tells the boy to pretend he never saw any of this and just forget it all. Since he wants to hide the pain, the old man says it is embarrassing to get beat up by a young punk. Clenching his fist, the young man realizes that some lines are simply meant to never be crossed by anyone. Standing his ground with a fierce gaze, the protagonist shows he is ready to fight back against these bullies. Grabbing a collar, the hero demonstrates that his pride is not something that people can just trample on easily. A bearded goon tells the boy to stay quiet while the elders speak if he wants to keep himself out of trouble. Holding the shirt tight, the older man demands the student keep his mouth shut regardless of what happens next. Suddenly, the thug lets out a loud scream of pain when his limb gets twisted in a very uncomfortable way. Pointing a finger, the boss orders his minions to eliminate the kid first before destroying every person in the room. Watching the intense scene, the co-workers look shocked and the man with glasses calls out the name of the fighter. Looking completely focused, the warrior prepares for the upcoming clash while ignoring the threats from the enemies. 3 attackers charge forward at once and try to jump the protagonist while yelling at the top of their lungs. A new guy steps in and asks the group who they are planning to grind up since he just arrived at the scene. With a smirk on his face, the bandaged man looks very confident while staring down the small army of thugs. Recognizing the mysterious person, the staff members look surprised because they did not expect him to show up. Stepping through the entrance, a woman called Director Beck Eigen appears while looking elegant in her black suit. Facing the lady, the leader asks if she has a habit of interrupting meetings between people who are doing real work. Mocking the guy, she says this place is not for a puppet director but admits the president did a good job growing the company. She then adds that while the president is great, he clearly has no talent when it comes to raising a kid like him. Hearing those words, the man gets extremely angry and asks what she just said while making a very scary face. The lady continues by saying she ignored his behavior out of respect for his father, but things have changed now. This woman points out that personality is not passed down through genes since he is nothing like the previous leader. On the clipboard we see proof of his bad habits, including fights and dirty entertainment during his free time. Looking even more annoyed, the guy asks if she is trying to threaten him right now with that information. With a calm smile, she replies that he is actually the one doing the threatening in this situation. He is shocked by her confidence while a drop of sweat falls down his face because he did not expect this reaction. She finds it strange that he delays departures because it makes the shipping company lose a lot of money. Sitting down, she accuses him of using excuses to stop ships so he can make bigger profits for himself. The man tries to act tough and claims she is just trying to dump all the blame on them to look good. He asks if they should assume she no longer wants to do business with them because of her attitude. The lady says everyone is free to interpret her words however they like while remaining very relaxed. He walks away and says they will see what price she pays for making a decision based only on her emotions. Sitting calmly in her chair, the powerful woman watches as the other men leave the room. Opening her eyes, she prepares to speak and sets a serious tone for the meeting. The 3 employees stand there looking nervous as the boss suggests having a private conversation. Moving the scene forward, we see the sign for the director's office where they will talk. Everyone takes a seat in the fancy room while the tension in the air grows much thicker. Starting with the facts, the lady mentions the incident involving a man named Choi. She looks directly at the boy and asks if he really went out to attack his superior. Trying to explain himself, the guy says it was just a fair match since the other person hit first. Both co-workers are shocked to hear this because it confirms the bad reports they received. The boss explains that 500 motorbikes are delayed and the company lost 1 billion won. Raising his voice, the older manager begs for forgiveness and blames himself for the mess. Regretting the whole situation, the girl cries and thinks her friend should have just stayed quiet. Feeling the weight of the bad news, the main lead looks down with a very sad expression. Standing on the rooftop, the duo talks about how workers must often bow their heads to survive. Clenching his fist, the hero shows how frustrated he feels about this unfair world. Looking at the boss, the young woman hears that people only lose money once they actually sell their items. Smiling confidently, the boy recalls some advice he heard from an old trader friend who used to be a real tough guy. Standing before the group, the new employee explains that since the bikes are still there, the loss is not real yet. Moving his lips carefully, the worker mentions the big export deal and prepares to make a very bold move. Taking full charge of the situation, the man promises to handle everything from beginning to end by using his own ways. Watching him closely, the lady boss shows a small smile because she finds his attitude quite interesting. Relaxing in her chair, the woman thinks that this guy named Sungo is way crazier than she first expected. Walking alone later, the main character looks totally stressed out while thinking about the huge promise he just made. Gathering around a table, the three friends wonder how they must sell 500 motorbikes in only 7 days. Trying to stay positive, the manager laughs while saying they are traders and he once sold hot tea in the desert heat. Feeling terrible, the young man apologizes to his team because he thinks he made their situation much worse. Rubbing his head, the hero laughs nervously while the girl says he did what others only dream of doing. Turning scary, the lady stares him down and asks if he really thinks her words were meant to be a nice compliment. Adjusting his glasses, the older man says they should not have helped him since he was the only one in trouble. Looking exhausted, the girl explains that the punishment would have been too much and she could not watch it happen. Smiling with a lot of energy, the lady says she likes his confidence and asks him to work together as a team. Pointing her finger up, she names the new group the Samjin Task Force, but the small guy looks like he has some big regrets. Showing a slight smile, the boss thanks the young man while everyone else stays quiet in the background. Looking confused, both colleagues stare at their superior after hearing him say something totally unexpected. Sitting at an outdoor table, the older man mentions it has been a long time since someone stood up for him like that. Staring at him with wide eyes, the girl admits she was truly surprised by his sudden and brave actions. Lowering her head, the brown-haired woman reflects on the fact that he was the only one who dared to help her. Laughing out loud, the manager says it was great to see that mean director get punched right in the face. Looking very serious, the protagonist listens as his boss expresses deep gratitude for what happened earlier. While they continue joking, the manager wonders if the bad guy peed himself and the hero says he will make it happen next time. Gazing over the bright city lights at night, we see the tall tower standing high above the busy streets of Seoul. Reflected in the glass, the boss lady says she is curious to see what this former legend can actually do. Standing alone in her office, she looks at the resume on the desk and wonders how he will handle the upcoming challenges. Back at the office, the girl finishes a phone call while thanking the person on the other side for their time and help. Holding the phone tightly, the screen shows the call is over after 07 minutes and 18 seconds of talking. Inside the office, the lady sighs because she had no luck on that side while the schedule is booked for 6 months. Looking up with frustration, the older man mentions that at least his right arm is still attached to his body. Standing up, the girl feels annoyed and asks where the boy went after causing so much trouble for everyone. Sitting at his desk, the man explains that the guy called earlier saying he found a way to move the motorbikes. Hearing the news, the woman looks surprised while wondering what kind of new method the guy actually found. Over the industrial area, a voice mentions being moved to tears because only one person is rich and loves bikes. Waving his hand, the protagonist meets his friend who wants to be officially known as his legendary right-hand man. Acting serious, the main character tells his buddy to live his own life since he only called for a specific favor. Feeling extremely excited, the blonde boy celebrates because he thinks he finally became a true colleague today. Arriving at a shady warehouse, the two guys wonder if this dump is really the place that buys things in bulk. Walking inside the dark building, they find a group of scary men waiting for them in the middle of the room. Focusing on the work, two tattooed men pour a dark liquid into a barrel while everyone watches the newcomers. Glaring at the visitors, the tough guys look ready for a fight while they keep an eye on the entrance. Using his chopsticks, a mysterious man picks up some food as he prepares to talk with the young visitors. Resting on the floor, the leader asks if they are there to sell something and tells them not to be shy at all. Looking at the group, the protagonist asks his friend who these guys are because they look like they are running from the law. Explaining the situation, the blonde boy says he was introduced by car sellers and heard this is a massive buying operation. Whispering to his partner, he mentions that these buyers probably sell to people who have no documents and want bikes with no plates. Hearing this, the main character gets very annoyed and asks why his companion is only sharing this vital information right now. Leaning forward with a curious look, the boss asks to be included in the fun conversation and offers to make a deal immediately. Suddenly, the atmosphere gets heavy as several large workers standing in the back hold tools while watching the young visitors. Pointing to a white scooter, the employee explains that they have around 500 units of the same grade as that sample. Showing a very creepy smile, the leader reveals a missing tooth while appearing quite satisfied with the large quantity offered. Laughing like a madman, the boss shouts that they will buy every single bike because he is very interested in the whole stock. Standing in the middle of the warehouse, the man claims that a bad economy makes his special market even more active than usual. Closing in on their faces, the stranger asks if they want some responsibility-free pleasure and offers it for a cheap price. Waving his hands in panic, the blonde guy refuses the offer while the hero decides it is time to leave this dangerous place. Turning around to exit the building, the protagonist shocks everyone by stating that they are not selling anything anymore. Looking very serious, the salaryman explains that he cannot sell the products if they are going to be used for illegal activities. Glaring with a dark expression, the boss repeats the word crimes while his face fills with a very scary and intense aura. Looking at his friend, the hero warns him not to insult the company name while the blonde boy looks totally confused. Shouting in frustration, the younger guy complains about the effort he spent setting up this meeting and hates the result. Desperately pleading, the teen asks his partner to reconsider because he has no other options if this deal fails. Sitting with his back turned, the mysterious leader remarks that failing business deals are just part of the game. Reminding them that time equals money, the man in the chair makes the two visitors feel very uncomfortable. Staring with terrifying eyes, the boss demands a big payment for wasting his precious afternoon on this nonsense. Suggesting a peaceful departure, the protagonist hopes they can just part ways and maybe talk again some other day. Walking slowly across the room, the heavy boots of the thugs create a very tense atmosphere inside the warehouse. Grinning widely, the blonde sidekick says he will handle the situation by teaching these guys a lesson they will not forget. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the crazy kid calls everyone they're a bunch of little brats to show his dominance. Holding their weapons tight, the group of scary men look very confused while wondering if this boy is actually insane. Boasting about his leader, the sidekick mentions the legendary man who once defeated an entire alliance all by himself. Turning his head, the blonde guy realizes the hero is already standing by the doorway and looks ready to bolt. Peeking through the metal, the protagonist reminds him that it is still work hours and he is just a normal employee. Charging with pure rage, the gang chases the screaming boy as he begs his boss to wait for him while he escapes. Shouting at his leader, the blonde guy asks why he is not selling the bikes because he wants his share of the money. Suddenly, the office worker begins to run away while his companion looks completely confused by the sudden movement. With a quick sprint, the hero rushes toward the exit and leaves the blonde boy screaming for him to come back immediately. While the warehouse descends into chaos, a massive fight breaks out as thugs try to catch the protagonist before he escapes. Desperate to catch him, the enemies scream to break his legs, but the warrior moves like a ghost between the attackers. Near a shiny motorcycle, the broker calls the young man an idiot for leaving such valuable goods behind. Glaring back with a cold gaze, the main character warns the criminal to stay away and not touch the vehicle at all. Launching a powerful strike, the fighter delivers a kick to the broker face while saying he will get the bike dirty. Tumbling into some old crates, the bad guy falls backward while debris flies everywhere from the strong impact. Stunned by the violence, the thugs look totally terrified because they realize this office worker is a monster. Upon looking at the paper, we see a single fingerprint that was left behind as proof of their dangerous deal. Mounted on the vehicle, the hero says they will call it even since the paper is now covered in dust and grime. Moving through the city streets, the lead asks his friend if he really tried to abandon him when things got dangerous. Professing his absolute loyalty, the blonde guy wonders if they should have just sold the bikes to avoid this mess. Heading away under the traffic lights, the assistant admits he even skipped work just to get a small piece of the profit. Rushing through the streets on a bike, the blonde guy looks back while a loud engine sound fills the entire area. Watching the delivery bikes fly past them, the writer mentions that those calls represent a massive amount of money. Curious about the profit, the blonde guy asks if his former leader could really just go back to work right now. Pointing at the worker in the distance, the young man explains that simple deliveries are actually what pay the most. Staring ahead through the helmet, the biker suggests that the salaryman should probably switch to this new line of work. Claiming a high salary, the boy says his friend could easily earn 10 million won every single month with his skills. High above the city, the moon shines over the tall Samjin building where light glows from the top floor offices. Inside the meeting room, the team looks through every possible route while the situation stays very difficult for them. Crossing her arms, the female director mentions that the local market is full and it is hard to get a fair price today. Adjusting his glasses, the older manager says that transporting the goods themselves might be the only realistic choice. Looking worried, the girl suggests trying to talk with the main director again to clear up any bad misunderstandings. Opening the door, the protagonist returns to the office while the group stops their conversation to look at him. Slumping into his chair, the main character looks exhausted after spending the whole day searching for a solution. Standing tall, the female boss looks at her employee and asks if there is truly no other way to solve the shipping problem. Staying silent for a long moment, the office workers wait for an answer while the pressure in the room starts to grow. Looking at the group, the young man asks why they don't just put their current resources to work. Pointing at the table, he suggests they utilize the motorbikes that are currently sitting in the warehouse. Riding through the city with his buddy, the hero explains that the delivery market is worth 4 trillion won. Explaining the stats clearly, he mentions that delivery agencies alone bring in over 1.5 trillion won. Looking at the map, we see 45% of the 1500 agencies earn over 1 trillion won. Watching the night traffic, he notes that delivery bikes actually outnumber cars during the busiest hours. Placing his hand on a white helmet, the protagonist believes they can find a way to make this work for them. While standing in the office, the worker claims they could earn 10 billion won instead of just 1 billion. Sweating from the pressure, the older manager warns that starting a new business is way too risky for a rookie. Staring with doubt, the young woman asks if he is seriously calling this random idea a professional plan. Showing a dark gaze, the hero explains he already studied foreign markets and met with a top operations expert. Hearing his words, the director looks completely stunned because she knows she already gave him the green light. Touching the gear on the desk, he reminds the boss that she told the team to keep pushing until the very end. Flashing a confident smile, the legendary fighter says that their real journey is only just starting today. Looking out the window at the city lights, the lady boss reflects on the helmet as the night finally settles in. Looking out the window, the lady thinks that Choi is actually a very smart businessman who counts every single cent. Ever since the big boss collapsed, the main seat at the shipping company has stayed empty while the rival wants it. She wonders if a different person promised the man a better profit just to make him break the current contract. Staring into the distance, the leader asks herself who inside the office has enough power to offer such a secret deal. On the phone, the man with glasses says he will deliver the news soon because the madam is unhappy with the delay. Watching the city, he mentions that a weak dam is useless since it cannot even stop a small trickle of water. Determined to win, the woman thinks that this specific project needs to succeed no matter what obstacles appear. Standing under the night sky, the protagonist looks at a stranger who wants to know his identity and purpose. Screaming his own name, the blonde boy introduces himself as Han Crime while acting like a professional consultant. Riding together on a fast motorcycle, the two friends head towards their next destination while the sun sets. Because he is impressed, the hero says the blonde kid is actually useful and can help the firm with his skills. Saluting with respect, the young man agrees to show up tomorrow in a suit to work as a business expert. Under the bright morning sun, the tall headquarters of the group shines as the workday begins for everyone. Walking across the clean floor, the polished shoes of a new visitor make a loud noise that gets lots of attention. Feeling totally shocked, the office workers stare at the stylish newcomer who just walked through the main doors. Inside the meeting room, the team wonders if the mysterious guest will actually be worth all the hype they heard. Looking very serious, the lady boss asks exactly when this legendary person will finally arrive to help them out. Suddenly, a dark shadow appears behind the glass door, which suggests that the wait is finally over for everyone. Opening the entrance with a big smile, the hero introduces the man as a special consultant named Han Byung. Stepping into the room, a guy wearing a flashy suit and leopard print shirt looks more like a thug than a worker. Looking completely horrified, the protagonist cannot believe his friend showed up looking like a total gangster. Staring in silence, the entire office team looks confused while trying to process the strange sight before them. Winking at the group, the new guy introduces himself as Han Crime while saying he is ready to start the job. Grabbing the leopard collar, the hero screams at his buddy for dressing like a yakuza instead of a professional. Watching the chaos from the table, the co-workers feel exhausted as they realize things are getting out of control. Fixing her intense gaze on the scene, the female director asks who this suspicious person is supposed to be. Sweating nervously, the young man tries to defend his choice by saying this is indeed the expert he promised. Leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, the blonde man looks cool while the boss asks if this is a joke. Thinking he looks like a loan shark, the manager yells that the fate of the whole project depends on this deal. Massaging her head, the lady boss sighs because she is already drowning in work and does not need more problems. Deciding to take a chance, the female director tells the team to let the visitor come inside right now. Waiting patiently in the hallway, the blonde guest stays leaning against the wall while the staff prepares for him. Staring at her team, the leader mentions that their friend must have a very good reason for bringing this guy along. Asking them to get the files ready, the boss makes the employees look totally shocked by her sudden decision. Speaking politely, the woman asks if she can call the guest by his name, and he quickly agrees to her request. Sitting around the long table, the group prepares to start the meeting while everyone looks over the shared handouts. Explaining the business, the girl talks about calculating costs and looking at how many people want deliveries nearby. Listening intently, the director mentions how renting out bikes to anyone regardless of age could be a great plan. While looking at the papers, the protagonist thinks about how easy it is for people to join this line of work. Suddenly, the blonde man interrupts the speech and claims that the current plan will be much harder than it looks. Comparing two different workers, the guest explains that a lazy guy does 2 orders while a busy dad finishes 7. Firmly, he states that finding real professionals instead of random kids is the biggest challenge they will face. Looking at the group, the newcomer says that a low entry barrier leads to people having no sense of responsibility. Showing the dark side of the job, the man describes accidents and fights that happen every single day on the streets. Ending his speech, the boy mentions that many writers just tell victims to sue them because they simply do not care. Inside a meeting room, the higher-ups wonder if managing the delivery agency and its unpredictable people is even possible. Over the mountains, the sun begins to set while the traditional building glows under the warm evening light. Pouring a drink into a small cup, a worker mentions the union and how everyone should move forward with a single heart. Holding a heavy bottle with a tiger design, the person prepares to share a drink while keeping the atmosphere very calm. Director Han Jae-myung from Samjin Trading asks if those words about helping each other fit their current situation. Looking across the table, the younger boss stays silent as the older executive talks about the true nature of their deal. Taking a sip from his cup, the young leader claims that people today do not care for cheesy talk about sharing hearts. Sitting in the fancy room, the antagonist admits he feels weird for getting involved in another family internal fight. Recalling the office scene, the fighter remembers his aggressive performance and how he personally handled the manager. Smiling widely, the senior praises the young man for stepping in personally and putting on such a great show. Setting down the empty cup, the rival says his actions were just out of curiosity since he moved exactly as promised. Showing a greedy look, the old man says he will cover the shipping losses if the logistics contracts are given to him. The younger leader mentions that even though the lady boss is struggling, she still belongs to the powerful royal bloodline. Refilling the cup, the director claims the company only cares about future performance and not about someone's last name. Clinking their cups together, the two villains agree to help each other so that they can both reach the top of the world. Smiling mysteriously, a man mentions that the lady director is planning something very funny behind the scenes. While drinking tea, he explains that the group is turning stuck bikes into a delivery service to save the company. Hearing the news, the dark-haired man lets out a small laugh because he finds the whole plan totally ridiculous. Laughing loudly, the villain claims that having a bunch of motorcycles is not enough to survive in this market. Using a marker, the boy explains that the business looks simple from the outside but is actually a mess. Shouting at his team, the blonde guy says that once you look deeper, this industry is a total madhouse. Mocking the idea, the boss says it is a circus where criminals rule and they will never let a new group move in. Looking serious, the young man explains that harassing new companies is basically a tradition for these street gangs. Grinning wide, the antagonist asks if they really think it is easy to find decent writers for such a dangerous job. Adjusting his glasses, the older director says they are hiring kids without licenses just to fill the empty spots. Wondering out loud, the senior asks if the lady boss can even handle these wild people once they are in a team. Focusing his gaze, the man addresses the director while the tension in the room starts to grow even more. Smirking with pure malice, the rival mentions that this agency business is not something for people who wear fancy suits. Standing tall, the blonde guy tells the office workers that this job is too messy for people who stay in buildings. While looking at the lady, he mentions that they must survive turf wars and handle crazy writers on the front lines. A mysterious voice wonders if a mere rookie can really handle such a big task while a dark eye stares intently. Confident in his friend, the blonde guy claims that Sungo is the only person who can actually pull this off. High above the city, the sun shines on the massive office towers as a new day begins for everyone in the area. Looking down at the park, we see a huge crowd of people gathering together for a very mysterious reason. Walking through the square, many different citizens look around while wondering why they were called to this place. Screaming at the top of his lungs, a large man with tattoos asks when the work is finally going to start. One guy in the crowd mentions he only came because he lost all his money on sports betting the night before. Feeling a bit nervous, the blonde subordinate asks his boss if he is truly sure about this crazy plan. Standing in the hallway, the main lead orders his friend to gather every single person who wants to find a job. Surprised by the short deadline, the companion hears that the mission must be completed by the next morning. Saluting with pride, the loyal helper promises to bring every relative, including his 8th cousin, to the site. Holding a loud megaphone, the protagonist tests the sound before addressing the massive group of workers. Suddenly, a loud screeching noise echoes through the park and makes everyone cover their ears in pain. Facing the enormous crowd, the young man starts his speech by thanking them for arriving so early in the day. Interrupting the speech, a bald guy from the group shouts that they only want to know if the rumors are true. Standing in front of the tall buildings, the protagonist uses a megaphone to tell the crowd they can borrow bikes for free. Smiling broadly, the young man confirms to everyone that the incredible offer is actually true. Shouting loudly, he explains that anyone hired as a rider will get a motorcycle with 0 lease fees since it is all free. Looking skeptical, the guys in the crowd wonder if this is just a scam because the lease is usually their biggest burden. Watching the growing crowd, the hero adds that there are only 2 simple conditions to get this free equipment support. Showing his white teeth, he lists legal registration as the first step and passing a very tough interview as the second one. Sitting at a small table outside, the office worker starts rolling up his sleeves to reveal his strong arms for the task. Extending his hand forward, the protagonist reveals that the interview method is actually a match of arm wrestling. Preparing for the first challenger, the man stays focused while he gets ready to test the strength of every single person. With a very serious look on his face, the fighter waits for someone to step up and try their luck against him right now. Hearing the news, the boys are shocked and ask if winning the match really means they get a free bike without paying. Screaming and pushing each other, the guys rush forward while yelling that they want to be the first ones to take the test. From a distance, we see a massive group of people gathering in the plaza as the news about the free bikes spreads fast. Stepping off a motorcycle, a mysterious person arrives at the scene while the noisy crowd continues to grow nearby. Holding a decorated helmet, the tattooed man laughs at the situation since he thinks this whole thing is a total circus. Turning around, a huge tattooed man on a motorcycle says it is time to teach some discipline to these annoying riders. Looking very sharp, the protagonist wants to find out who was brave enough to cause trouble inside his own territory. Shouting loudly, the blonde assistant tries to organize a huge crowd into a single line so they keep everything under control. Pointing his finger, the young man tells a giant guy to go to the very back of the line without any special treatment. Approaching the massive stranger, the boy repeats his command but suddenly feels a very scary presence coming from him. Trembling with fear, the blonde kid lets out a nervous laugh because he realized the man is way too big and dangerous. Falling over, the poor guy hits the ground while the main lead sits at a table wondering why there is so much noise. Looking up, the office worker asks what is happening while the giant bully stares him down with a very dark expression. With a terrifying face, the monster asks if this little person is the one responsible for the circus in the street. Smirking, the huge thug says the hero has a lot of nerve and mocks the situation like it was a bad comedy show. Whispering in shock, the crowd recognizes the beast as a famous fighter named Hwang Jungyu, who is known for being a bull. Grabbing the collar with a tattooed hand, the giant shows off his veins while getting ready to start a real problem. Cowering on the floor, the blonde companion watches the scene in terror while some wooden crates fall right next to him. Getting close to his face, the bully asks if the suit boy really thinks he can steal riders with such a stupid stunt. Showing his teeth, the giant asks if the worker needs some help with the interview while looking like a complete demon. Smiling confidently, the main character claims that he already knows the identity of the big man standing before him. Grabbing the tattooed giant by his shirt, the hero addresses him as Mr. Hwang Jungyu while staying perfectly calm. After revealing his past, the protagonist mentions that the bully is 24 and was once the captain of a sports team. Permanently banned from wrestling, the big guy used to hurt his juniors so badly they were hospitalized for 18 weeks. Laughing loudly, the former athlete admits the boy did his homework but asks if he really wants to keep playing hero. Suddenly, the thug gives a menacing look and warns the visitor to get lost before he gets his head planted into the ground. While sweating from head to toe, the blonde companion asks his boss if he is truly certain about provoking such a beast. Screaming in panic, the assistant reminds the worker that this man is the most influential person in the entire area. Because the crazy bull ignores ranks and age, the worker decides that they definitely need him for their team. Placing a hand on his shoulder, the main lead asks his friend what stays the same even when the world changes. Smirking with a dark aura, the office worker prepares to make a move because he feels incredibly confident in his skills. Instead of fighting, the protagonist suggests an arm wrestle for a small bet while the tattooed man looks confused. If the giant manages to win, the skilled man says he will lend out every single motorbike to the other group for free. Adding a risky condition, he demands the man become a writer for his company, but only if he is not too scared to try. Keeping his word, the young man confirms that a verbal contract is still legal while the angry guy prepares to play. Gritting his teeth hard, the scary man lets out a loud growl while his face turns red from pure anger and frustration. A warning sign appears on the screen and reminds everyone to support the official creators by following the rules. Smiling brightly, the manager praises our hero for the amazing job of saving all those 500 motorcycles today. Acting humble, the main lead says it was just luck, but the blonde assistant claims that fieldwork is the real secret. Suddenly, the young boy starts bragging about the big fight, so the protagonist quickly covers his mouth to keep him quiet. Looking confused, a construction worker listens to the news about the new safety training and character education plan. Laughing nervously, the hero keeps his friend from talking since he does not want his violent past revealed to the boss. Facing the team, the director confirms that the cargo is safe and mentions the tight schedule for their new project. With a gentle look, she thanks the staff for their effort and asks them to keep pushing for just a little bit longer. Confident about the future, the blonde guy says that everything is going way too smoothly for them at this rate. Staring in total horror, the rest of the team looks at him like he just said something absolutely cursed and evil. Adjusting his glasses, the manager asks the boy if he realizes that he just used a forbidden word in this office. Pointing her finger, the girl explains that every job has a jinx that brings bad luck if someone mentions it aloud. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing and the manager looks very worried as he prepares to answer the urgent call. Screaming in total shock, the man finds out they must vacate the warehouse immediately because of a huge sudden problem. Looking at his monitor, the worker realizes that the shipment for the first team was moved up to next week instead. Answering the call with a worried face, the manager hears that there is nothing left for them to do about this mess. Sitting at the desk, the older man explains that Director Han decided to take the goods much earlier than planned. Showing a mysterious smile, the powerful woman seems to be planning something big while listening to the bad news. Staring intensely, she wonders if this is the game the rival wants to play because she is not ready to lose yet. Calling every contact, the young woman finds out that all the warehouses are full because of the Black Friday season. Clutching her head in despair, she asks the hero if any of his contacts finally gave him a positive answer for a site. Looking exhausted, the girl says that using bike inventory for a delivery service was probably a very bad idea. Opening her eyes wide, she hears the protagonist say that this difficult situation is exactly why they can succeed. Grinning with total confidence, the worker says that the real answer is always found within the impossible tasks. Reciting the company motto, the young man tells the girl that overcoming a crisis brings an even greater reward. Leaning back in his chair, the hero explains that he learned those words from an old friend many years ago. Turning her head with a sharp look, the senior asks why he thinks he can lecture her while being a rookie. Popping up from behind the desk, the lady shouts that she is not giving up on this project despite the trouble. Staring at the empty desk, the co-workers realize that they still have the support of their manager to keep going. Wearing a yellow safety helmet, the older manager smiles while sweat drips down his face from all the hard work. Helping a worker with a heavy roll of material, the senior is told that he really does not need to do this task. Laughing off the concern, the boss says he wants to help at least this much because he enjoys being useful. Watching the man carry the heavy load, the employee thinks it is crazy how much energy the guy has today. Holding a blue can of coffee, the warehouse leader notices that their guest has finally developed some sense. Handing out drinks to everyone, the manager makes the workers feel a bit uncomfortable with his kindness. Boasting about his past, the senior claims that the loading skills he learned years ago will never go away. Staring silently at the happy man, the warehouse boss seems to be thinking about something very important. Bowing deeply to each other, the two men finish their business while promising to keep in touch for updates. Walking away during the sunset, the manager hears a voice calling out to him from behind for one last talk. Mentioning a shipping accident, the worker says there might be an open spot at another trading company now. Turning his head, the manager listens as the guy in the jacket addresses him as the suit guy one more time. Raising his drink with a big smile, the rough man thanks the visitor for the coffee he received earlier. Looking at the horizon, the sun shines brightly over the green hills as a new day of work finally begins. Standing inside a massive empty building, the leader waits as the rest of the team arrives to see the space. Arriving at the location, the group sees another man standing there and wonders why he didn't wait for them to arrive. Looking surprised, the girl asks if they already talked with the person in charge while the team waits for the manager. Suddenly the man turns around and mocks the group because he thinks seeing them in this place is actually quite funny. Waving a brown envelope, the visitor laughs while mentioning that the team is currently in a very desperate situation. Confused by the sudden appearance, the manager asks why he is here while the rival says he came to sign a new contract. Angrily shouting, the girl realizes the rival took their warehouse and wonders how he could be so shameless right now. Looking down on the subordinates, the man tells the manager to control his team better since they are acting very rude. Tapping the manager's head with the papers, the bully asks if he really thinks this business is just some kind of game. Showing a nasty expression, the rival claims that the team is suffering because they failed to pick the winning side. Explaining the rules of the industry, he says that a true trader must know how to play both sides to reach the very top. While mocking his opponent, the man mentions that a smart worker always switches ropes before the old one finally snaps. Changing the scene to a fancy office, the trader reports that the warehouse contract is finally secured and ready to go. Drinking tea with a smile, the director praises the subordinate for grinding the other manager down during the meeting. Leaning forward, the man asks about the next step regarding the goods while the director stays calm and very focused. Smirking behind his cup, the boss mentions the shipping company name and plans to lay the groundwork for their next move. Looking at the senior worker, the young man thinks that Manager Park is way more sentimental than he first appeared. Smiling widely, the executive seems to love the company, but he actually plans to move resources somewhere else secretly. Turning away from the window, the boss reveals that his real loyalty belongs to the construction branch of the big group. Jumping up from his seat, the subordinate bows deeply and asks the director to keep guiding him through the corporate world. Patting the shoulder of his worker, the leader laughs and mentions that the kid has a real talent for pretending and acting. Pushing the head of the employee down, the manager explains that doing great things requires knowing how to bury the truth. Looking up at the tall office building under the full moon, the narrator wonders how such a mess could even happen so fast. Standing in the quiet meeting room, the lady asks if it makes any sense for colleagues to interfere with their work today. Staring at the floor, the main character wonders if the result would be different if he had never stepped in at the start. Revealing her true identity, the boss tells the team that she is actually the daughter of the powerful company chairman. Standing before the office tower, she explains that the second wife of the leader is the one causing all of this trouble. Showing only a dark silhouette, the speaker introduces her stepmother named Cheon Yuhui as the person behind the shadow. Listening to the explanation, the employees learn that the shipping firm never intended to accept the new deal willingly. Looking very determined, the director says the enemies want to stop her from gaining any power within the family business. Sitting at a fancy dinner table, the villains must have promised huge profits in exchange for stopping the motorcycle deal. Even with the past connections involving President Choi, the situation remains very tense for everyone in the room. Looking at the big picture, we see that Director Choi is currently fighting hard to inherit all the management rights. Facing huge pressure from the board of directors, the man knows he is being tested on his ability to lead the firm. Because the company only cares about money, they do not mind what methods are used to get the best possible results. Staring into the distance, the young man thinks about how achieving greater profit and results seems to be the only goal. Suddenly, the blonde boy complains that the business world is way too childish for a group of supposedly mature adults. Making a frustrated face, the friend says that both the corporate world and the streets are just as dirty and unfair. Shocked by the comment, the protagonist asks what his companion just said about the world being a mess. Feeling totally stunned, the fighter asks if the other guy is really serious about selling every single one of his bikes. Leaning over the desk, the lady boss suggests they try a different approach to solve the problem with the inventory. Standing tall, the hero points out that the core issue is the blocked export route, making the motorcycles a burden. Confused by the simple explanation, the managers wonder how they can find someone to buy everything at full price. Realizing something new, the woman watches the rookie explain that the error was trying to sell only the vehicles. Showing a confident smile, the worker says they should sell everything alongside the enemy they faced just yesterday. Transitioning to a local gym, we see the rival training hard because he is now the key to their new alliance. Inside the gym, several heavy punching bags hang from the ceiling while they sway slowly after a very tough workout. Running a hand through his damp hair, the fighter mentions he could hear the crying from all the way over here. Clapping his hands together, the protagonist mocks the other guy for spending so much free time practicing lately. Standing face to face, the muscular man asks if the visitor missed being humiliated during their last meeting. Fixing his clothes, the hero says that his rival has a terrible sense of humor and that is why he has no friends. Noticing the loneliness of the warrior, the worker asks if he wants a new companion to keep him company today. Leaning in closer with a sneaky grin, the protagonist offers a business deal that would make anyone interested. Chuckling at the suggestion, the dark-haired guy says he is already full unless the offer is something special. Striking a heavy bag with a simple punch, the fighter claims that everything in life is easier than training. Looking focused, the protagonist explains that the simplicity of the task is why the deal is so attractive. Using all his strength, the hero delivers a massive blow that sends shockwaves through the whole gym room. Flying high into the air, the heavy bag gets launched toward the ceiling because of the power of that strike. Staring in total disbelief, the rival wonders how a training tool could ever be moved with such insane force. Smirking at his stunned opponent, the young man mentions the 500 motorbikes that were blocked recently. Pointing a dusty finger forward, the hero demands that the big boss just buy every single one of those bikes now.
The hero casually suggests that the muscular guy should just buy every single one of those bikes right now. He lets out a frustrated sound after realizing this rookie is actually being very serious about the offer. Suddenly the man breaks into a wild laugh while mocking the idea of someone like our lead being a total legend. Choi asks if this attractive offer is just a sneaky way to dump all the leftover stock onto his own company. The protagonist smiles through the tension and says he is giving the fighter first dibs on a deal that reaches heaven. He gets right into the face of his opponent and asks if the newbie truly understands the situation or if he thinks life is a joke. Without flinching, the hero replies that the only one acting like a clown in this room is the man standing before him. His words cut deep because he calls the rival a simple lapdog for the powerful Han Jae-myung who pulls all the secret strings. Choi tears off his gloves and loses his cool, then wonders how a mere office worker dares to speak so boldly. The bully threatens to ruin the boy forever, but the protagonist reminds him of who got knocked out cold yesterday. Our hero pulls out a red folder and tells the angry fighter to stop the useless bickering so they can talk business. He shakes the papers and asks if this proposal is a deadly poison or the one chance that finally changes a life forever. The fighter looks at the documents with pure focus and curiosity because he is intrigued by the sudden confidence. Both men take a seat since the office worker explains that they are selling much more than just simple motorbikes today. Shock fills the face of the man before he realizes this is a massive joint project between Samjin Trading and Mujin Shipping. A new proposal titled Last Mile Integrated Logistics Service sits on the table as the final piece of the puzzle. The rival wonders if 10 billion won of stock is really just a cheap admission ticket to start this massive operation. Director Choi flips through the pages and realizes his shipping company cannot reach the doors of customers. Sung-do offers to solve this problem while the opponent stares at him with a very intense and focused expression. This detailed plan is structured on the assumption that every single step will be carried out without any delays at all. Instead of growing slowly, the project is designed to go all in from the very start to secure a victory early on. A memory of his father reminds the director that a company with only one road will eventually hit a dead end. During the pandemic, their huge shipping business suffered a lot because the sea routes were completely closed off. Moonlight reflects on the dark waves as the old man warns his son about being isolated by only looking at the ocean. The senior mentions that they must move onto the land and push further inland to find a new way for the firm to survive. Young Sejin argues that the parcel market is already locked down by big players with no room to squeeze in anywhere. His father calls him an idiot and tells him to stop thinking only about moving big freight across the world. That old man chews on some meat and claims that whoever feeds on human laziness will own the next 10 years. Go to the very end of logistics and find the answer. There is the final piece of advice given by the previous leader. Pressure makes the director sweat as he finally agrees as the newspaper reveals the trillion-won value of delivery platforms. The muscular rival stares at the proposal and admits the numbers actually make perfect sense from a business perspective. Suddenly a wicked smile spreads across his face as he mocks the protagonist for bringing such a cheap and simple plan. Choi holds the documents and asks if his opponent is blind to how the market actually works in the real world. His hand slams onto the desk as he explains that every single region is already packed with agencies trying to survive. The rich guy points at a tiny slice of pie and says they will only be picking at leftover crumbs in this brutal war zone. Sung-do stays perfectly calm after hearing that real money only comes when you manage to monopolize the entire market. A malicious laugh escapes the director as he asks what the Samjin name even offers besides some fake pride and grit. His sharp eyes fix on the pages and he claims that without a secret trump card this plan is just a piece of paper. A mysterious smirk appears on the hero face as he asks if the guy truly thinks he traveled all this way just for scraps. Our legendary fighter declares with total confidence that they are aiming for a blind spot that no one else dares touch. Every person in the room feels the tension as the rival relaxes on the couch to wonder about this blind spot. Kwon taps the red folder and reveals that he already offered the same deal to several other powerful partners. This office worker explains to the team that Choi will always try to act like the top dog if they give him any choice. Confidence fills his face as he notes that urgency is the only way to make a stubborn buyer finally sign the contract. Both coworkers immediately start calling their old contacts to secure the missing pieces of this massive puzzle. The elegant boss sits at the head of the table and orders the team to prepare for action before calling her best worker. Sung-ho looks up with full attention as the lady tells him to deliver a special message to Director Choi. Her mysterious smile appears as she explains that a lonely rowboat left in the sea never survives for long. Back at the training center, the young man adds some bonus info from his director that will surely shake his rival's world. Shock fills the bully's eyes when he hears that Han Jae-myung just secured a high position at the construction branch. Veins pop out on the muscular man's arm as he realizes the person he trusted might already have one foot out the door. Our hero spreads his hands and suggests the fighter should check the truth himself even though it might take some time. The fighter bursts into a fit of insane laughter and calls our lead a total lunatic for trying to mess with his head. Suddenly a heavy hand crushes the documents on the table with enough force to make the whole room shake in terror. That suit guy stays perfectly still as the papers fly everywhere and the beast screams in his face. Choi grins like a demon and says he is not moved by these cheap tricks before mocking the kid for failing so miserably. Paper flies across the room as the protagonist recalls a lesson about business only working when hearts are truly aligned. This legend turns his back on the monster and tells the rival to spend his remaining time clinging to a master's leg. Disbelief fills the air as the muscular man listens to the hero claim that they refuse to work with emotional losers. A confident smirk appears as the warrior ends the conversation by calling the entire deal off right then and there. Sung-ho smirks at the monster and tells him to just grab onto their pant legs if he wants a job later. The hero waves goodbye as the giant screams about how an office employee dares to speak to him like that. Pure rage consumes the beast as he slams his massive fist onto the table with enough force to shatter wood. Time passes painfully fast as dark clouds move across the bright moon above the silent city skyscraper. Minji eats ramen at her desk and keeps calling every warehouse contact to find a place for the bikes. Our group explores every corner of the city while laughing off their exhaustion to find a home for the stock. The lady boss sits alone in her grand office and works through the night as meetings become a daily routine. That manager with glasses types away on his secret plan as he hides behind a glowing computer screen. A deep sigh of fatigue escapes the young woman as she steps into the elevator after a long day of stress. She steps into the dark conference room to prepare for the final showdown that will decide her whole career. Important leaders gather around the large table because the executive evaluation day has finally arrived today. A wicked grin appears on the rival face as he prepares to crush his competition with a single brutal move. Chat messages confirm that the bikes are still stuck in Incheon, which proves the sabotage plan worked perfectly. The villain glares at his phone and whispers that he will finally finish off Director Beck and take everything. Tension rises as the heavy door slowly opens to reveal the people who will decide the next move. President Park Tae-young enters the room and notices that every single person arrived exactly on time for the meeting. The big boss sits at the head of the table and officially starts the evaluation for this quarter. That rival director asks for permission to speak first as a dark scheme starts brewing behind his fake smile. He mentions how Team 3 struggled lately and suggests that Director Beck should present her failure before everyone else. The arrogant man looks straight at her and asks if she agrees with his proposal to move her up the schedule. She accepts the challenge with a sharp smile and thanks him before preparing to take the stage. A confident walk toward the podium leaves the snake of a director feeling very happy about her downfall. Baek Ijin stands at the podium and begins the report regarding the massive inventory risk. The president reads the documents and feels a bit shocked to see a projected loss of over 1 billion won. Angry voices in the back whisper that this disaster only happened because of that annoying new guy in her team. She remains calm and announces the final decision to completely withdraw from the overseas export project. Chaos erupts as people demand to know how she plans to take responsibility for losing so much money at once. The rival smirks in the shadows and thinks she is nothing more than a puppet who finally reached her limit. Her eyes close as the lady admits they only had a mountain of unsellable trash before this project started. She glares at the crowd and reveals that everything changed only 3 weeks ago when the legend joined the firm. Several executives look completely lost when they hear about the massive progress made in just 3 tiny weeks. Her eyes glow with confidence since she knows those useless bikes became a literal gold mine for the firm. A 10 billion won down payment sends shockwaves through the room as the old director almost chokes on his words. From the podium, the lady boss predicts a massive revenue boost that will change the fate of their entire department. This rival mocks her with a laugh and claims she is lying because nobody sells a whole business unit that fast. The angry executive demands to know which insane company would sign such a deal, then someone grabs the remote control. Information on the screen reveals a strategic alliance that leaves every person in the meeting room totally speechless. With a victorious smile, Director Beck names the partner and watches the color drain from the face of her enemy. She mocks her rival for having deep ties with Mujin since he failed to see this massive betrayal happening right under his nose.
She reveals a strategic partnership agreement that hands over 70% stake of the agency to Mujin Shipping. Shock waves ripple through the room as the corrupt director stares in utter disbelief at the name of his own ally. He slams his hands down and screams that it is impossible for a powerful giant like Choi to ever support a mere brat. A stern hand slams onto the table as another executive warns him to stop making a scene and show some basic dignity. The lady boss mockingly asks if she is more than just a brat or if the legendary director has simply lost his mind. Rage consumes the villain as he realizes his powerful partner just stabbed him in the back without a single warning. President Park raises his remote control to officially deliver the final evaluation for this high-stakes agenda. The screen changes to show that the board fully acknowledges the viability and potential of this business model. He announces that the project is placed on a temporary hold to give them 1 month to prove their financial records. She bows respectfully and confidently promises the president that she will easily deliver the requested results. A cold and victorious smirk appears on her face as she celebrates this absolute triumph over her bitter enemy. The defeated rival stands frozen in place with his fists clenching so hard that his entire body shakes in pure fury. An aide delivers the news of the finished evaluation as his boss mocks the rival's weak blood pressure. The nervous secretary asks why his master changed his mind while staring down at the profile of the young hero. This shadow boss asks what kind of man reaches the top of the ladder and gets back a generic answer about charisma. With a sharp denial, the ruthless leader claims only raw violence and absolute force can make others kneel. He reveals old photos of Sungo and names the notorious high school that the young legend ruled at the very peak. That hellish school was a literal shark tank where half of today's underworld bosses and syndicate leaders were born. From illegal rental operations in Gangnam to international gambling rings, these beasts only feared one single name. He explains that victims either got their teeth kicked in or became desperate enough to try and kill the legendary fighter. During those chaotic school days, the legendary warrior was not just a mere fighter but the absolute rule of the streets. The nervous assistant can only swallow hard, wondering why such a dangerous beast now plays the role of a normal office worker. A wicked smile spreads across the director's face as he anticipates the absolute chaos this sleeping monster will soon unleash. The story shifts back 3 weeks earlier to the towering corporate headquarters where the massive crisis first began to unfold. Inside the silent meeting room, the desperate team members clutch their heads over the impossible task of moving the stock. The light-hearted co-worker desperately suggests a wild plan to just distribute the unregistered bikes to random people. Realizing the sheer illegality and risk of the reckless idea, the exhausted crew quickly rejects the suggestion. Suddenly, a heavy footstep echoes from the doorway, interrupting their chaotic brainstorming session with chilling tension. An arrogant rival director casually leans against the doorframe to mock the struggling team for looking completely bankrupt. Shock and disbelief grip the entire office crew as they suddenly recognize the powerful enemy standing right before them. A malicious grin twists his face as he mockingly insults their pathetic expressions and suggests they are ready to beg. Instead of showing any fear, our calm hero counters with a smug smile of his own and questions the uninvited guest. A cold and authoritative voice suddenly cuts through the heavy atmosphere from the back of the hallway. The elegant lady boss strides confidently into the room, demanding to know why the intruder is making such a pathetic scene. The villain turns around with a nasty smirk to mockingly wonder why her office desk has not been completely cleared out yet. Both sides face each other across the massive table as the high-stakes negotiation officially begins. This ruthless boss demands to know if the profit is grand enough for him to betray his current partner. Director Beck slides the contract forward and details a massive investment plan totaling 2 billion won. The skeptical giant scoffs at the absurd valuation for a new division that has not even launched yet. A dark aura surrounds the criminal leader as he asks if they dare to take him for a fool. With absolute confidence, she explains their grand vision of dominating the entire logistics network. She promises him exclusive rights to the special zones that form the very core of their entire business model. The proposal offers 70% of the profits to his group in exchange for one small warehouse. Choi sets the warehouse issue aside and asks what kind of annual profits they are actually projecting. She confidently projects over 5,000 deliveries a day with 700 million won in net profit. A victorious smirk plays on her lips as she guarantees a full recovery of the principal investment in just 3 years. Tapping his fingers on the desk, the mob boss admits the numbers are attractive but questions their feasibility. He looks around the room and mockingly asks which of them is actually capable of running such a massive operation. Suddenly, a cold chill runs down his spine as he meets the terrifying gaze of the silent young hero. Pure sweat drips down the face of the fearsome boss as an overwhelming pressure paralyzes his entire body. The annoyed coworker snaps at Sungo for yawning during such a critical moment in their negotiations. The criminal boss stands up and gives them exactly 1 month to either succeed or dig their own graves. Director Beck requests one final favor: to construct a fake warehouse and trick their enemies into a false sense of victory. A sinister grin spreads across his face as the boss gladly accepts the chance to stage an epic revenge match. Heavy rain pours down as a corrupt manager publicly humiliates the workers to put on a perfect show of despair. The lady boss praises her team members for delivering an award-winning performance that will completely fool their rivals. With their brilliant trap successfully prepared, Sungo smiles as he declares that it is finally time to strike back. Anxious co-workers immediately jump up and panic the moment Director Beck returns to the office after the evaluation. The exhausted team collapses in pure relief upon learning they secured a precious 1-month extension to prove their worth. Director Beck calmly reveals that she staked her entire career on their upcoming monthly results. Her shocking announcement sends the entire team into a hilarious panic as they instantly plan new career paths. Clapping her hands, she announces it is finally time to launch the secret plan they have prepared for weeks. The core crew members nod in fierce determination, but the nervous office worker suddenly interrupts with pure dread. He screams that their target zone is a lawless wasteland where even ruthless local thugs fear to tread. A dark flashback reveals a legendary beast standing victorious over a massive pile of defeated enemies. Meanwhile, the powerful mob boss bursts into laughter over the phone at their absolute madness and sheer guts. He directly addresses Sungo, who stands outside the new market warehouse to confirm the relocation is complete. The criminal leader warns that although the warehouse is ready, they must face the dangerous local forces themselves. The powerful mob boss demands immediate results and reminds Sungo that he uncovered his legendary fighting past. Choi mockingly warns the former street king not to let his legendary fists rust away in a business suit. A massive recruitment offer is instantly rejected when Sungo declares a tiger would never serve beneath a mere fox. The anxious co-workers completely lose their minds after hearing that failure means their brand new warehouse turns into a grave. Adjusting his tie with absolute confidence, our hero vows to conquer this lawless district and achieve total victory. Entering the chaotic Daegadong market, the nervous crew quickly realizes they have stepped into a dangerous foreign territory. The team spots unregistered restaurants, but the assistants warn that this chaotic market holds a truly terrifying reputation. A roaring motorcycle tears through the crowded market and nearly obliterates the unsuspecting team members. Sungo pulls his startled colleague to safety as the reckless writer screams profanities and speeds away into the distance. The young hero instantly notices a massive swarm of delivery riders all wearing the same mysterious panda uniforms. Nearby, an arrogant driver shamelessly demands higher rates from a desperate restaurant owner who pleads for a single delivery. Realizing the local delivery system is completely broken, the team moves forward to locate their primary target restaurant. Chiming bells welcome them to a famous traditional hotspot that has legendary status but absolutely refuses to do delivery. Massive crowds pack the dining area as Sungo decides they must speak directly with the owner to pitch their business plan. A stunning waitress approaches their table with fresh tea to take their order. The team immediately introduces themselves and requests a private meeting with the restaurant owner. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the dining hall as rowdy thugs complain about hair in their food. The fabricated health scare drives the panicked customers away, leaving the dining room completely empty. Trembling with rage, the waitress confronting the loud troublemakers refuses to give in to their cheap tactics. The bald gangster mockingly offers to end the sabotage if she signs an exclusive delivery contract. When she fiercely rejects the extortion, the massive thug explodes in anger and threatens her life. Sungo suddenly interrupts the hostile standoff by closely inspecting the bowl to confirm the hair exists. His reckless interference sends his nearby co-workers into an absolute state of pure panic. He extracts a thick bristly strand from the bowl and casually notes its uncanny resemblance to pig hair. Holding the evidence high, he points out that the hair of the trembling thug is also thinning rapidly. A mischievous grin spreads across his face as he contemplates the suspicious texture of the shorter curls. With lightning speed, his fingers pluck a single matching hair straight from the sweating head of the bully. He proudly holds up the perfect match and cheerfully declares that the mystery has finally been solved. Veins bulge across the gangster's forehead as he trembles in pure humiliation and uncontrollable rage. Our fearless hero nods in mock sympathy, claiming he understands the deep pain of hair loss. Laughter fills the room as he boasts about his own perfect hair as his team completely panics. The worried waitress sweats profusely, realizing this reckless worker has no idea who he is messing with. Rage consumes the massive bully as he prepares to unleash a brutal assault. Sliding a hidden weapon from his sleeve, the brute threatens to hunt the young hero down. Flicking the weapon down with a single finger, he mockingly asks if the beast can only bark. An explosive punch rips through the air, but the legendary Street King easily dodges the slow strike. Without breaking a sweat, he delivers a sharp foot sweep that completely shatters his balance. The massive bully crashes face first into the floor as Sungo politely demands payment for the meal. A hot bowl of noodles splats right onto the bully's bald head as Sungo mocks his terrible eating habits. Enraged by the ultimate humiliation, the thug draws a deadly blade and lunges forward to slice our hero open. Horrified screams echo through the restaurant as the worried team and waitress warn him of the lethal danger. With a cold smirk, Sungo declares it is officially self-defense before unleashing a devastating fist into the bully's face. The leader collapses instantly, prompting the remaining lackeys to charge forward in a desperate attempt to avenge their boss. Moving with absolute grace, our hero effortlessly intercepts the incoming slash and brutally snaps the attacker's wrist. He slams the remaining thugs into the floor with absolute ease, leaving a pile of groaning bodies in his wake. Stunned silence grips the restaurant as the terrified co-workers realize their quiet colleague is a legendary street god. The restaurant staff quickly cleans up the chaotic mess as our hero calmly takes a slow sip of hot tea. Recognizing the rare Da Hong Pao tea, he casually mentions his past days working in the distant city of Fuzhou. An anxious silence fills the space as the clueless co-worker wonders why the mood in the room is still so heavy. She reveals the terrifying truth that their defeated attackers belong to an elite overseas criminal syndicate. With an easygoing smile, Sungo reassures the team that he understands exactly how these dangerous alleys operate. Meanwhile, a ruthless foreign gang leader crushes his cigarette in anger as his beaten men beg for forgiveness. Smiling with pure malice, the vicious boss issues a deadly threat that forces the bald thug to scream the name Samjin. The ruthless boss realizes his targets belong to the massive Samjin group and laughs at their total lack of fear. Back at the restaurant, the waitress begins explaining the tragic history of how their district fell into ruin. She reveals that arrogant delivery riders constantly exploited and humiliated the elderly foreign merchants. Dishonest riders regularly stole food mid-transit and mocked the hard-working chefs who dared to complain about the theft. Suddenly, a powerful man named Gusajin intervened by delivering a devastating punch that shattered the riders' arrogance. The charismatic savior defended the honor of the community and swore to protect his fellow countrymen from further abuse. He quickly won the absolute trust of the local market by mediating disputes and resolving their delivery issues. Despite his efforts, the corrupt writers retaliated with clever sabotage and spread malicious rumors to ruin businesses. To counter the dirty tactics, Gusajin proposed launching his own exclusive delivery service to regain control. The ambitious young man boasts about his grand logistics past in China and begs for the merchant's absolute trust. Moved by his bold passion, the veteran owner agrees to introduce the young savior to the local association. Operating under the banner of friendly service, the brand new panda fleet rapidly dominates the entire district. This dream of peaceful coexistence quickly shatters when the ruthless leader reveals his ultimate greed. A devastated shopkeeper weeps over hidden contract clauses that suddenly threaten to ruin his business. Brutal scarred fingers lock onto his shoulder as the demonic boss demands absolute submission with a wicked grin. Back in the present, the waitress bitterly exposes the corrupt syndicate as blood-sucking parasites of the market. Our heroes freeze in absolute shock upon learning her brave father was silenced by a brutal hit and run. The exhausted co-workers prepare to leave the terrifying district after failing to secure a single delivery contract. Worried about the upcoming executive meeting, they suddenly realize their reckless partner has completely vanished. While the naive assistant praises his burning passion, a sudden wave of deep realization hits them both. They scream in pure panic, knowing their chaotic friend is likely starting another massive brawl somewhere in the market. Inside the local merchant association building, a crowd of onlookers gasps at a mysterious young mahjong genius. Struggling shopkeepers complain about extortion fees as they watch the master handle the tiles with supernatural skill. An arrogant local champion laughs maniacally as he reveals an unbeatable hand and claims the ultimate title for himself. A smug grin breaks the silence as Sungo warns that a single percentage can completely flip the entire table. With supreme confidence, he reveals the legendary 13 Orphans hand to shatter the victory of his rival. Terrified onlookers gasp in absolute disbelief at the mythical tiles sitting right before their eyes. Lowering his shades with a smirk, he declares that he finally has their undivided attention. An outraged player points a finger, recognizing the mysterious genius as the delivery rookie from earlier that day. Sliding his massive pile of winnings back to the table, our hero politely requests just 5 minutes of their time. The stunned merchants look over his proposals, acknowledging the undeniable power of a major corporation. Standing tall, he boldly argues that the lawless market suffers from a complete lack of healthy business competition. He compares the corrupt monopoly of the vicious panda group to an unbeatable hand of mahjong tiles. Tapping a single tile, he notes that even the most perfect hand fails if a single piece is missing. Holding the crucial tile high, he promises to turn their terrifying tiger of a rival into a harmless, toothless cat. Whispers ripple through the hesitant crowd as they question if corporate suits can ever truly understand their pain. Clenching his fist with burning determination, Sungo vows that his company will personally rip those fangs out. Desperate shopkeepers debate the wild offer, wondering if a megacorporation can succeed where the police failed. A stern elder steps forward, warning the reckless youth that the dangerous streets of Daegadon will show him no mercy. The angry elder commands our hero to stay away for his own safety. He warns the quiet crowd that involving outsiders will only lead to a massive bloodbath. The stern warning echoes through the room as he mentions the tragic fate of the helpless father. Suddenly, a panicked messenger crashes through the doors, screaming in absolute terror. Tears stream down his face as he reveals that the vicious panda gang has just kidnapped Yura. Terrified whispers erupt among the cowardly merchants who fear she will share that same tragic fate. The desperate youth begs on his knees for someone to stand up and help them. Despair grips the helpless elder as he laments the brutal cruelty of their own countrymen. Sungo flashes a confident grin, noting that mere words can never truly inspire hope. Striking a powerful stance, he prepares to prove his words with absolute force. He gently reassures the weeping youth, promising to bring the captured waitress back safely. The panicked elder shouts a warning, fearing that more innocent blood will spill. Smiling calmly, our hero reminds them that a perfect hand is worthless if a single piece is missing. The stunned elder gasps in disbelief as the realization of his words sinks in. With a fierce look, Sungo declares that true power cannot exist without the submission of the people. Sungo explains that the enemy only gains power when the people submit to their fear. He reminds the stunned merchants that their own submission is what fuels the corrupt syndicate. Reaching out his hand, he boldly claims that his job is making the impossible happen. With absolute determination, he sets off to rescue their captured leader. Meanwhile, inside the enemy headquarters, Yura glares at her captors with fierce defiance. The ruthless boss smiles calmly as he tells her to relax and stop acting so hostile. He slides a new contract across the table, expecting her to reject the terms instantly. She is stunned to see the predatory fees have suddenly been waived in this new deal. Flicking his lighter, the boss acts as if he wants to avoid useless bloodshed between countrymen. He preys on her secret exhaustion, noting that her business is already on the verge of collapse. The master manipulator urges her to sign for the sake of her employees and her own peace. She asks for a final guarantee that his thugs will never touch her people again. Feeling entirely defeated, she decides to sacrifice her pride to save her bedridden father and staff. Just as she is about to sign her name on the dotted line, a sudden voice echoes through the room. The entire syndicate turns in shock as an unexpected guest crashes their private meeting. Sungo enters the room with a calm smile, announcing he is there to escort their valued client. He casually interrupts the meeting and warns Yura that she must always read predatory contracts with extreme care. Snatching the lighter, he holds the flame directly beneath the document to expose its hidden secrets. The heat reveals a notorious Guangdong province scam known as a red thread contract designed to steal her business. A dark grin spreads across the gang leader's face as he realizes this newcomer is indeed from the rival Samjin group. Yura trembles in sheer horror, realizing she was only seconds away from signing her entire life away to these parasites. Without waiting for permission, Sungo suddenly hoists the stunned waitress onto his shoulder to make a swift exit. A furious bald thug blocks their path, declaring that the meeting is far from over. Tapping his fingers, the ruthless boss grabs a heavy object and warns that they still have a deadly debt to settle. Menacing steps echo through the room as the ruthless boss offers to settle their score with a heavy wooden block. Unfazed by the deadly threat, Sungo remains completely calm to shield the terrified waitress on his shoulder. Without warning, the psychotic leader swings the massive block and brutally crushes his own henchman's face. Blood splatters everywhere as the demonic boss mercilessly beats the screaming thug into absolute submission. Lifting the crimson-stained weapon with a sick grin, the boss presents this savage display as a formal apology. Scoffing at the gruesome show, Sungo sarcastically advises them to contact the labor office for their injuries. Inhaling his cigarette, the intrigued gang leader smiles, knowing they have finally encountered a true monster. With the rescue mission complete, the legendary delivery man instantly returns to his polite corporate duties. Sungo walks away after securing the legendary alliance, leaving the stunned merchants behind. The grateful merchants realize this reckless corporate warrior might actually dismantle the corrupt Panda Empire. Back at the office, the team stares in absolute awe at a massive mountain of free celebratory dumplings. Enjoying the delicious feast, the co-workers discuss the brutal reality of restaurant food waste. A sudden spark of pure genius flashes in the manager's eyes as a revolutionary idea takes form. Slamming his hands down, he instantly calls an emergency meeting to share his game-changing plan. The visionary leader claims to have found a perfect formula that will completely crush the enemy's sales. Standing at the whiteboard, he proposes a ridiculously low price of 7,900 won. His co-workers immediately object, arguing that such low margins will yield absolutely zero profit. Flashing a brilliant smile, the manager reveals a phone screen packed with endless delivery orders. This insane discount is actually strategic bait designed to synchronize all delivery times. The smart manager points out that random orders normally limit a single rider efficiency. A focused menu and single destination slot during peak hours completely changes the game. Suddenly, the team realizes how stacking multiple orders in the exact same area maximizes efficiency. By cutting the menu down to only 2 popular items, the kitchen can pump out food at lightning speed. Grouping orders in the same time frame turns individual losses into a massive collective triumph. What once looked like a simple delivery service suddenly transforms into a weapon of pure logistics. Crunching the massive population data across 3 major districts reveals an unbelievable customer base. A modest 3% conversion rate would instantly generate an earth-shattering 15,000 daily orders. The ambitious manager vows to connect random delivery dots into unstoppable lines of corporate dominance. Worried teammates quickly object, pointing out that small local kitchens can never handle such massive volume. Sungo flashes a confident grin as he proposes a revolutionary supply chain solution. Utilizing their massive central warehouse allows them to distribute fresh ingredients directly to the shops. By supplying ingredients directly and keeping delivery fees low, they will easily conquer the market with 10 shops. With the ultimate strategy fully prepared, Sungo boldly orders the official launch of Samjin Delivery. A massive fleet of roaring delivery bikes suddenly floods the city streets with unstoppable force. Riders easily transport massive stacks of identical orders to execute the perfect batch delivery plan. Stunned onlookers notice that the rival syndicate riders have completely vanished from the entire district. Partnered restaurants suddenly experience an unprecedented wave of non-stop incoming orders. Woks fire up at lightning speed as chefs pump out dozens of identical dishes in single synchronized batches. Nearby competitors watch in utter envy, realizing they made a grave mistake by not joining the alliance. Exhausted but incredibly happy, the hard-working chef admits his pockets are finally overflowing with cash. Realizing the time, the grateful boss leaves his supportive customers to watch the shop while he dashes away. Filled with hope, he smiles, knowing his family will finally have the peaceful life they always deserved. Minju happily boasts about her brand new dress while receiving a warm pat on the head. Her joyful mood suddenly shatters as she spots her father standing frozen in the distance. A sinister figure looms over the innocent child, revealing himself to be the ruthless boss Gu. The cruel boss reminds the helpless restaurant owner of the past favors he supposedly owes the syndicate. Trembling with pure terror, the desperate father tries to explain his inability to pay their insane interest rates. Bosku reaches his hand out toward the clueless little girl with a terrifying look of malice. Screaming in absolute panic, the terrified father lunges forward to shield his daughter from danger. He gathers her into a tight embrace as the innocent girl wonders why her father is shaking so violently. Cruelly dropping the clothing tag to the floor, the gang leader speaks of the girl desires for a better life. His sinister smile widens as he delivers a chilling warning that her new clothes could easily end up soaked in blood. Leaving them with a dark ultimatum to make the right choice, the monstrous villain calmly walks away into the sunset. Clutching her weeping father, the confused young girl softly asks why he is crying so desperately. Overwhelmed by agonizing regret, the weeping father desperately begs his innocent daughter for forgiveness. Forced into absolute submission, the terrified restaurant owner suddenly sends a message to quit the Samjin alliance. Pouring a fresh drink, the ruthless syndicate boss claims that fear is the most cost-effective marketing tactic on Earth. He explains that making a brutal example of one victim is all it takes to force everyone else to fall in line. Looming behind him, Sungo listens to the villainous speech with a cold and completely unfazed expression. Sungo acknowledges that while violent intimidation can yield results, it suffers from one fatal flaw. Visualizing the brutal methods used by the syndicate to enforce submission, he points out their crucial weakness. Sitting down directly next to the crime boss, he calmly declares that the shelf life of fear is far too short. Intrigue flashes in the gangster eyes as he prompts the young delivery manager to explain his theory further. Reaching across the counter, Sungo stops the boss from pouring to demonstrate a different kind of power. Taking the bottle himself, he politely pours the drink while explaining that true sales starts with serving the customer. The golden liquid fills the glass as he explains that manipulating weak people through terror is far too simple. Sungo asserts that humanity will always instinctively run toward hope, just like the 10 shops that join Samjin. Water spills over the old street cart, representing the superficial layer of terror that is already beginning to fade. Sungo declares that their system of hope will destroy the gang reign, while the amused boss mocks his idealistic morals. Bosku mocks Sungo, claiming he can tighten his chokehold on the merchants much faster than hope can feed them. Pointing out that one merchant has already betrayed the alliance, Sungo confidently proposes a high-stakes wager. The sinister gang leader accepts the challenge to see which of their opposing methods will survive the test of time. Staring down at the filled glass, he welcomes the struggle, declaring that a difficult hunt will only make victory sweeter.